Why are you shutting me out like this? Because you never listen to what I have to.
Have you ever been described as guarded, distant, or maybe even too selective about who you allow into your life? Perhaps you meet new people who seem perfectly kind and friendly. The conversation flows normally. You smile, you respond politely, and from the outside, everything looks effortless. But internally, something very different is happening. There is a quiet pause inside your mind, a moment of evaluation. Before you allow someone to get closer, you instinctively start observing. You notice the way they speak about other people. You pay attention to the small inconsistencies in their stories. You watch how they react when things don't go their way. And without consciously deciding to, a subtle boundary appears, an invisible wall that keeps just enough distance between you and them. If this experience feels familiar, you're far from alone. Many people live with this quiet instinct to protect their emotional space. Yet in a culture that celebrates constant socializing, large friend groups, and easy trust, this tendency is often misunderstood. Some interpret it as coldness, others assume it is arrogance or antisocial behavior. But in reality, this invisible wall rarely appears without a reason. It is often the result of a mind that has learned through experience that trust is powerful and sometimes dangerous. To understand why this instinct develops, we first need to look deeper into how the human brain processes betrayal and emotional pain.
I'm telling you, that was the funniest thing I've seen all week. Pass me another slice. Seriously.
To understand why some people struggle to trust, we need to look beyond personality and into the brain itself. Because when trust is broken, the brain doesn't interpret it as a minor emotional inconvenience. It processes it as a threat. Neuroscience research has shown that social rejection and betrayal activate many of the same brain regions associated with physical pain, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex. In other words, when someone lies to you, abandons you, or weaponizes your vulnerability, your brain reacts in a surprisingly literal way. It registers the experience almost like a physical injury. To the nervous system, emotional betrayal is not abstract. It is a real and significant danger. This is where the amygdala enters the picture. The amygdala is the brain's threat detection center. Its job is simple but powerful. Remember danger and prevent it from happening again. When someone experiences a deep breach of trust, the amygdala stores that moment as a highly charged emotional memory. Over time, it can push the nervous system into a state psychologists call hypervigilance. Hypervigilance means your brain begins scanning constantly for potential threats. So when you meet someone new, your conscious mind might think, they seem nice. But your deeper survival systems are quietly analyzing everything beneath the surface. The tone of their voice, subtle facial expressions, inconsistencies in their behavior. This is why distrust often feels automatic rather than deliberate. It isn't simply a mindset. It's a protective response shaped by past experience. From the brain's perspective, caution is not negativity. It is prevention. And once the nervous system learns how painful betrayal can be, it becomes highly motivated to make sure it never happens the same way twice. While painful experiences in adulthood can shape how we trust, many of the deepest patterns begin much earlier, during childhood. Psychologists often explain this through attachment theory, which suggests that the way we connect with others as adults is heavily influenced by the emotional environment we grew up in. In early life, our caregivers teach us an unspoken lesson about relationships. Are people safe to rely on, or are they unpredictable and disappointing? When caregivers are consistent, emotionally supportive, and responsive, children often develop what psychologists call secure attachment. These individuals usually grow up feeling comfortable with closeness and trust. But not everyone has that experience. If a child grows up with caregivers who are emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, overly critical, or distant, the child may adapt by developing what is known as an avoidant attachment style. Instead of learning that vulnerability brings connection, they learn something very different. Relying on others can lead to disappointment, rejection, or emotional pain. So the mind creates a protective rule, often unconsciously. It's safer to rely on myself. As adults, this can translate into a strong sense of independence. People with avoidant tendencies often appear calm, self-sufficient, and emotionally controlled. They rarely ask for help and may prefer handling problems alone. But beneath that independence is often a deeper fear, not of people themselves, but of being let down. Trust, for them, is not refused out of arrogance or indifference. It is carefully guarded because early experiences taught them that closeness can sometimes come with a cost. Another fascinating piece of this puzzle involves intelligence and observation. Research in evolutionary psychology has suggested that people with higher levels of analytical thinking often approach social relationships differently than the average person. One idea, sometimes discussed through the Savannah theory of happiness, proposes that while most humans thrive on frequent social interaction, highly intelligent individuals tend to feel less satisfied when constantly surrounded by social activity. Instead, they often prefer solitude, deeper conversations, and smaller, more meaningful circles. One reason for this may be heightened pattern recognition. People with highly analytical minds tend to notice things others overlook. They don't just hear what someone says, they pay attention to what someone does. They observe inconsistencies between words and behavior. They pick up on subtle signs of passive aggression, insecurity, manipulation, or hidden agendas. Where others might quickly label someone as charming or friendly, an observant mind may still be quietly collecting data. Over time, this constant analysis naturally leads to stronger social filtering. Instead of giving trust freely, they evaluate character through repeated behavior. And because they notice patterns faster, they often decide more quickly who belongs in their inner circle and who doesn't. This doesn't mean highly observant people dislike others or want to isolate themselves. In fact, many of them value connection deeply. But they are rarely interested in shallow interactions, forced socializing, or relationships built on appearances. For them, trust is not about popularity or quantity. It's about authenticity. And when authenticity is rare, their circle naturally becomes smaller. While caution can protect us from real harm, it can also create a subtle psychological trap. When someone has been hurt deeply in the past, their mind often develops a powerful expectation. People will eventually betray or disappoint me. Psychologists refer to this pattern as a self-fulfilling prophecy. It usually unfolds in a quiet cycle. Because you expect people to let you down, you may unconsciously begin testing them. Not always in obvious ways, but through small behaviors that create emotional distance. You might hold back vulnerability, reveal very little about yourself, or become guarded the moment someone gets too close. Sometimes people push others away intentionally, starting unnecessary arguments, withdrawing emotionally, or watching carefully to see if the other person will prove their loyalty. From the inside, these behaviors feel like protection. But relationships require openness to grow. When someone repeatedly encounters emotional walls, distance, or constant tests, they may eventually become confused, exhausted, or discouraged. Over time, the relationship weakens and the person may leave. And when they do, the mind often interprets it as confirmation. See, I knew they couldn't be trusted. What can be difficult to recognize is that it may not have been their lack of trustworthiness that ended the connection. It may have been the defensive barriers that slowly suffocated it. Protection, when taken too far, can quietly turn into isolation. And sometimes the walls that keep pain out also keep genuine connection from getting in.
just found.
It's incredible, absolutely risk-free, and the returns are massive.
Why are you shutting me out like this?
Because you never listen to what I have to say.
So where do you go from here if trusting people has always felt risky? The first step is to rethink what trust actually means. Many people imagine trust as a simple switch. You either trust someone completely or you don't trust them at all. But in reality, healthy trust works more like a dial, not a switch. You don't have to give someone 100% of your trust the moment they enter your life. Instead, you can practice something psychologists often call earned trust. Allow people small opportunities to show who they are. Share something minor about yourself and watch how they respond. Do they listen carefully? Do they respect your boundaries? Do their actions stay consistent over time? Trust can grow slowly, built through repeated evidence rather than hopeful assumptions. At the same time, one of the most important forms of trust is trusting yourself. Many trust issues are not only about fearing that others will betray you, they are about fearing that you won't be able to handle it if they do. But the truth is, you have already survived difficult experiences before. You are wiser, stronger, and far more aware than you once were. You don't have to let everyone into your inner circle. Your boundaries are valid. Just remember that somewhere in the world there are people who are consistent, honest, and worthy of the loyalty you have to offer. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Do you prefer a small, trusted circle or a large social network? And if you enjoy deep dives into human psychology like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you won't miss future insights into how the human mind really works.
Why are you shutting me out like this?
Because you never listen to what I have to say.